When talks failed, the answer did not come in statements or press conferences. It came through the air. Over the skies of occupied Donetsk, in the hours before dawn, a sequence of decisions moved from diplomacy to action, and the conflict entered a different phase. What unfolded was not sudden, and it was not chaotic. It followed a clear order. A proposal was offered. It was rejected. A weakness was identified. Planning accelerated. Then aircraft lifted into the dark sky, and assumptions that had held for months began to fracture. Before sunrise over eastern Ukraine, the tempo of the war shifted. At precisely 4:10 a.m. local time, the first movement began. It was the kind of hour chosen deliberately, when fatigue dulls reaction and the margin for error widens. The event that made this possible had already occurred. A Pantsir-S1 air defense system, one of the nodes guarding Russian-held airspace, had been destroyed. That loss did not simply remove a launcher from the battlefield, it tore a hole in a network. The Pantsir system exists to protect other systems. It shields command posts, logistics hubs, and higher-value air defense assets from low-flying aircraft, drones, and cruise missiles. Once it falls, what it guarded becomes vulnerable, often within hours. Analysts have long noted that air defense is not a collection of isolated machines, but a living structure. Remove one supporting piece, and the rest begin to strain. Ukraine did not rush immediately. Before the aircraft moved, Kiev tested diplomacy. The proposal was narrow and time-bound. Halt the fighting, open talks, prevent escalation while space still existed to contain it. The response from Moscow was immediate and uncompromising. There would be no negotiations, no pause, no reconsideration. The channel closed almost as soon as it opened. That refusal mattered. It marked the end of one phase and the beginning of another. Inside Ukrainian command centers, planning shifted from signaling to execution. The destroyed Pantsir unit was confirmed. Air defense coverage across the sector was reevaluated. Reaction times were recalculated. Flight routes that had once been considered too risky were reopened. Electronic warfare parameters were adjusted to exploit the gap. Time became the decisive factor. Every passing hour increased the likelihood that Russia would redeploy replacement systems or reinforce the exposed corridor. Ukraine moved before that window could close. The objective was no longer restraint, it was penetration. At 4:10 a.m., Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jets lifted off under cover of darkness, carrying full combat loads. This was not a patrol and not a demonstration. It was a coordinated strike package timed to arrive before first light. Minutes later, the aircraft entered contested airspace above Donetsk, Ukrainian territory under Russian occupation. The effects were immediate. With the Pantsir system already gone, Russian air defense coverage in the sector was uneven. Radar images did not align cleanly. Command links lagged. Ukrainian aircraft exploited the opening without hesitation. Precision munitions were released in tight sequence, striking targets associated with command support and rear area operations. Explosions followed in rapid succession. Secondary detonations suggested stored equipment and ammunition had been hit. Fires spread across multiple sites, illuminating the outskirts of the city before sunrise. The strikes were not random. They were shaped by intelligence gathered during the planning phase, refined after the air defense gap was confirmed. A second wave followed through the same corridor within minutes. The pressure increased deliberately. Russian units attempted to respond, but coordination faltered. Air defense missiles were launched without stable tracking data. Some detonated prematurely, others missed entirely. The sky filled with activity, but not control. At ground level, the consequences multiplied. Communications between units broke down or overlapped. Orders contradicted each other. Situational awareness collapsed in pockets. In modern warfare, that kind of breakdown often paralyzes a force faster than physical destruction. The MiG-29s maintained tempo, forcing Russian defenses to remain reactive. Each additional pass widened the gap left by the destroyed Pantsir system. Reaction times stretched beyond recovery. What Moscow had treated as a protected rear zone became an active battlefield in less than an hour. This was not symbolic, it was functional. After years of missile strikes, destroyed cities, and civilian losses, Ukraine responded not with rhetoric, but with timing, aircraft, and force. When the jets turned back, parts of Donetsk were burning, and the assumption of safety was gone. Once airspace is broken in this way, it does not reseal easily. By around 4:30 a.m., it was clear the operation had not concluded anything. It had opened something more volatile. Russian air defense units attempted to recover. Backup procedures were activated. Crews tried to compensate for the missing node, but the system was already compromised. With one Pantsir unit gone, others were forced to operate independently. Coverage became uneven. Radar pictures no longer matched. In air warfare, fragmentation of that kind is dangerous. Ukraine returned before Russia could reset. Just before 5 a.m., Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jets lifted off under cover of darkness, carrying full combat loads. This was not a patrol and not a demonstration. It was a coordinated strike package, timed to arrive before first light.